Okay, I've got an animation here of Stuart jumping, and you've got a ball animated in there as well. And I'm going to show you a way of doing a jump animation using what's called pose-to-pose animation, which is, I mean, there are many different ways of animating a jump. One way would simply be to use spline animation and animate Stuart's body and get it moving correctly, and then animate the legs and arms. This is a different way, using a pose-to-pose animation. Now, pose-to-pose animation is often initially animated using stepped curves in Maya, which look a little bit like this. Now, this form of animation is very good for getting poses, but when it comes to very fluid actions like a jump, it's less good for timing. So that is the reason that I have the ball in the finished version here. It's really just a reference rather than something that, you know, should be shown. Anyway, so how do I go about doing this? Okay, well, I'm going to bring up this one here to show you how I start this. Basically, you've got a ball, and the ball's at Stuart's midriff, because this is his center of gravity. So this is where, you know, where this is the area, you know, if Stuart's center of gravity is the area at which Stuart rotates around, it is where most of his mass, his weight, is concentrated. So, first of all, I made this ball. I'll show you what it looks like in 3D. And because I'm using this as a kind of an indicator, when I do my stepped animation, I want to match Stuart's waist, this control here, the waist with the ball, and I'll be using the side view to do this. So the first thing I have to do, I'll just redo it, is I've got to do a ball animation. So if I go into my, I've got this ball animation here. So how would I do a ball animation? Well, it's quite straightforward. I'm just going to get rid of this and I'll do it again. So to do the ball animation, let's say I want a bit of anticipation on this, but let's say I want my ball starting at frame, say 11. So what I'm going to do, and I can always slip the animation if I have, once I've animated Stuart's anticipation, I can always slip it so it matches up with where the ball starts. So to do a ball animation, it's very simple. Remember, I just have to key on, you know, the frame I want it to start. Initially, I'm just going to be looking at the Z-axis, which is the outward axis for the ball on this. And let's say by frame, how long is it going to take? 1, 2, say 2 seconds is about 50. So say to about 60 frames, I'll have this going out to about here. That's as far as it will travel in that direction. And then I turn this into one of these curves, so it's going to be fast to begin with, and then it's going to slow down here. So this is what it's doing in the Z axis. Maybe a little bit faster than that, actually. I might have it going a little bit further as well. Let's see. So look at that. Something like that, anyway. So, and then I have to do my Y. So I do them both separately. The Y, well, the Y is starting here at Stuart's waist, and the Z. Then it's going to head up. The midpoint of the bounce is maybe about here. So I'll pull this up to here. Maybe drop it down a little bit, maybe say here. I'm going to change this curve so it's like this, and then I'm going to drop it down. So that's frame 24, so say frame, so 24, 14, so about here is the other one, maybe back here a bit. And here I'm going to push this down. You know, I can always alter this. Maybe get it down to say here. Now, This curve, of course, looks wrong, so I'm probably going to pull this back because I want this. The apex of the jump is normally roughly about the middle, and then it's falling down further, so I will have it fall down here like this. And remember, I have to change the curves to these curves, which are, if you like, for want of a better word, gravity curves. So it's going to go up, down, up, down. That's how it looks. Something like that. And then it's going to bounce again, of course. Oh, I mean, I did this just for aesthetic purposes. In terms of Stuart's jump, the second bounce isn't necessary at all. But anyway, this is essentially. So if I want it to bounce again, because what's going to happen is, I mean, I don't need the second bounce because this is really just a method to try so I know where Stuart's body should be. So I'm just going to make sure I get this correct. Maybe. Let's see if I get this so it looks right. Maybe pull that up a bit, maybe this up a bit. Maybe that looks roughly symmetrical. Okay, so let's see, that's my bounce. That's what Stuart's going to follow. So after I've done that, I've got my one bounce. I don't need the other one. I would make sure that when I go into the Windows settings preferences, and I go to my animation, that I have it set to linear and stepped, and I save that because I want Stuart, when I animate Stuart, I don't want him splined. And what that animation looks like, if I showed you, is it looks, when Stuart moves, if I move him into position, so I have him going down, so when you do this kind of animation also, I'm just going to turn, you always make a layer for the ball because you don't want to select it accidentally, is you make sure, I'm just going to select my NURBS curves, that when you key everything. So I key all the controllers, it doesn't matter. I've put him in a position so he looks, always pull them out of the T-pose for the first pose so it looks natural and relaxed. And then if the ball is going to start at frame 10, maybe I want to get him to go down on this frame. So I have to think, well, which foot's coming back, which foot's coming forward. If I have this one coming back, how does this work? Does he come like this? Is he like that? Does this foot go back further? Yeah, try and get some interesting poses. Make sure the balance is correct. This looks rather strange just now. I'm not going to go through every pose. This video is really more just about showing you what kind of method you use. You know, always remember to pull your feet away from very obvious. Maybe not as much as that. And try and get the character looking. Now, what happens is, and then again, when I've got a pose, I'm not saying I particularly want this one, you select all your keys and you key everything again. And by keying all the controllers, what it means is you will not get strange little artifacts in your animation when Maya splines it. So what that looks like now is you have this effect. And the great thing about working from pose to pose using stepped curves is you see very clearly what all your principal poses are. It's very hard to see it when you're working with splined curves. Okay, so that is how you start it. You've got the ball as your marker. So what happens when the ball takes off and you make your character jump? You just have to remember that your character's waist, I'll show you. I'm not. When I did this, I didn't even bother. You can. This rig's quite good. You can switch from IK to FK, and you know you can switch it without having to lose the position of your IK legs. But just for simplicity's sake, I'm just selecting the waist controller, the two IK controllers, and the pull vectors. And when I put him, when he jumps, I'm simply going to move him using the side view. So his body's in the middle of this this ball. Okay. Now going back to this one here, I'll bring the ball in again so we can see it. One important thing that people always forget to do when they are animating something like this is very important, the lift-off phase, that the character's feet are still on the ground. Yeah, so we can see we've got this bit here. So this is the, I mean, it's approximately in the same place. The character's feet are still on, the character's feet are still outstretched. One of the things that mistakes people often make is they have the legs bent when their characters are jumping, which always makes them look like they're flying. Your legs will be at full extension when you jump. Your legs effectively act like springs. So as you can see, if we look at this, even though the ball is on a spline curve and Stuart is on a stepped curve, Stuart follows, and I'm keying it, say every 5 or 6 frames, he follows the ball, the trajectory of the ball. And you know what it means, that I can concentrate on the position of the legs. Now, important when you're doing this to think of where the legs are traveling to. So say for example, the back leg here, it comes forwards. I mean, it's up to you what decisions you make regarding the direction of travel of the legs, but just make sure that there is a consistency to it and not just throwing the legs any old place. So here we've got the back leg coming forwards and then slipping backwards again, and we have the front leg going backwards and then coming forwards. I mean, obviously the different types of jump. Another thing to remember that's important in a jump is when the character is landing, don't have the character landing with very bent legs. That will look strange, and it would also, injure you if you were to land with very bent legs. So the legs will probably somewhat outstretched, maybe a little bit bent, but they certainly won't be